Hey there, I'm Felicia from We Buy Your Land for Cash. If you feel like you are stuck with an unwanted property piece of land, call or text us. We may be able to help you out and get you cash in hand for that unwanted property. Today's land blog video, we're going to look at 12 factors that bring down your Arizona land value. So as a landowner in Arizona, there are 12 key influencers that you need to watch out for. And these things can make or break your land value. When my company invests and purchases Arizona land, we make sure to check these things very carefully. If you want to have these factors handy, you can download the guide. It's free. I'll put the link in the description of this video for you. And with each of the points, each of the 12 factors, we made sure to include a pro tip. So it'll be worth it for you to go over and get your free Arizona land value guide. So let's just go through them quickly here. Number one, chain of title. Obviously the biggest factor. Not all deeds and property transfers are created equally. The best type of deed is a warranty deed. This means that when you purchased the property, the seller pledged or warranted that they owned the property free and clear of any outstanding liens, mortgages, or any other encumbrances against it, and that they warrant this for the entire history of the property. If you did not use a warranty deed to purchase your property, this could potentially cause a lot of problems when you go to sell. It can really hurt your land value. Accessibility, number two. Some properties are only reached by county easement or by an unofficial, privately owned trail. This isn't normally a problem for most Arizona properties, but you still need to be aware. If you can only access your property through a wash or by crossing into your neighbor's property, your land value is going to be inherently capped. And if your property is a far reach from any nearby towns or cities, this could be another negative notch against it. A lot of people want rural, but they need access to things like grocery stores and gas stations at the bare minimum. Number three, dues. Outstanding dues, outstanding debts owing have a huge impact on property value. And a lot of people don't know, but when you go to sell the property, any outstanding debts and taxes, those actually get passed to the new owner. So if you don't do your research, or if you're not paying off those taxes, all those debts owing go to the new owner, and that can have a massive notch against your property value. It's also something you should be transparent about when you're selling, kind of a best practice. It's just always best to be honest and transparent whenever you can. Number four, I think, land use. So land can only be used for specific purposes, and unfortunately, you don't get to decide what those purposes are. Land can be restricted at the county, but also at the municipal and metro levels. A lot of people think that they can just drive their RV down to Arizona, park it on their land, and then come and go as they please. This is not a guarantee. Now, we know from experience, like I know from experience working so long in Arizona, they're actually quite lenient compared to some other states, but there are still many counties in Arizona that will not allow you to permanently camp or RV on your property. There are often limits on the number of consecutive days, so the number of days in a row allowed for camping and RVing. So if there are a lot of restrictions from the county or from the municipality, the metro area, this could be a huge negative mark against your property that's going to bring down its value. Soil type. Based on the type of soil out on your Arizona desert land, it might create difficulties building or growing a garden, agricultural uses. Clay soil, for example, is more heavy and it's harder for plants to take root. Sandy soil drains quickly, but also doesn't really hold nutrients for plants. Loamy soil is rich, dark, and crumbly, and I think would probably be the best type for growing. Depending on the soil type and the zoning of your property, your land value might be a lot lower than what you'd hoped. Utilities. So power is not a given, even in residential areas of Arizona. It's definitely not a given for larger and agricultural plots way out of the cities into the desert. It can be really expensive to have electricity brought in, and a lot of Arizona counties don't approve of alternative power sources. City water and sewer is obviously the best option for land, but not having these isn't as bad as not having power. In this case, if you don't have these, you could always install a well, have a septic brought in. Both of these are pricey and could ultimately be a negative factor in determining your land's value. Desert wash. Most parts of Arizona get probably 300 sunny days per year, but when there is rain, it's going to come flowing into the washes. Water flowing into the wash is really powerful. You don't want to underestimate it. Flooding around a wash is also really strong, and it can take down trees and displace cars. A lot of people think that they can ignore the wash, drive up it. You don't want to do that because it's unsafe, and in the case of a flash flood, you could get stuck or really hurt. Having a wash on your property could bring down the value because the weather is totally unpredictable. Potential buyers may be turned off by the wash because they don't want to put in the effort and financial investment to develop the property, make it their own, get a homestead, new home out there, only to have their efforts totally destroyed by a once in 100-year flood. Junk. My team, we have made the mistake, even with our hundreds of property acquisitions, we've made the mistake of buying property with junk on it. Abandoned trailers, busted up boats, cars. Let me tell you from experience, it was very costly to have it all cleaned up. I don't want to go through that again for sure. It was expensive and it was a big headache. And had we known before, we would have really thought to bring down that property acquisition price. So having all these things like junk, big debris, structural debris, things you can't pick up with a garbage bag, having all that on your property can really hurt its value. Neighbors. Unfortunately, how a neighbor uses their property affects the value of your property. Thankfully, there are often zoning codes and restrictions in place that prevent things from getting too crazy, but the rules might not cover every distinct situation. So imagine you've purchased a lot in Arizona. You want to use it as a family weekend getaway cabin. You go through the effort of clearing it, getting all the brush out of the way, cacti, getting them aside, building your cabin, and then you start spending weekends there, here and there, only to realize that your neighbors, even though they might be an acre over, they are using their property as a halfway house, or they're just really rowdy, right? They're ripping around on dirt bikes at 3 a.m. They're outside with loud music, drinking, socializing all day, all night. Not exactly the type of environment you've envisioned for a relaxing weekend or for a weekend with family. And if your annoying or noisy neighbor isn't breaking any zoning rules or municipal bylaws, there's often not much that you can do about this, even though it's terrible for your property value. Market prices, similar to bad neighbors, this is a tough one to accept because it's out of your control. This is why location is so important for land ownership. If your property is in a metro area, for example, you can expect more volatility than if it's completely rural away from cities and towns. And that volatility can work in your favor or against it. So you get to ride the high when times are good, but then when times are bad, the floor could very well fall out from under you. And hopefully you don't need to sell when the market is down. Like hopefully you don't need that cash in hand when the market is down because you could end up losing money on that Arizona property. Natural disasters. So natural disaster recovery is becoming more and more important. You might not think of flooding in Arizona, but this state is prone to flash floods, and flash floods are extremely dangerous. FEMA and the USGS have data showing the increased frequency of floods, and unfortunately, a lot of the areas in Arizona are in a high or relatively high risk area. So this means that the ability to recover from flooding is a must-know for landowners. Topography. So sloping isn't something that can be easily fixed. If it is fixable, it will probably require a ton of fill dirt, and that would be extremely expensive. For most buyers, that solution would simply be out of reach. If the sloping is severe and not fixable, your property value is capped because the property uses are limited, right? Like you don't want it so sloped so that people could never build, or, you know, they can't even pitch a tent. They're sleeping at like a 45-degree incline, right? That kind of aggressive sloping is going to cap your property value. I know this might all feel very overwhelming, especially for Arizona landowners who may have inherited or been gifted property, or who bought it sight unseen and aren't aware of all these factors. Don't be hard on yourself. Tracking land value is very tricky, even for professionals like me that do it full time. It's like trying to track a moving target. If you own land in Arizona and you don't want to deal with the headache of valuation, trying to account for all these changing factors, don't worry, because you do have other options. The quickest and easiest option for you to get rid of your land headache is to sell to a professional investor, like my team here at We Buy Your Land for Cash. With us, you can expect no commissions or fees, no closing costs, no hassle, no marketing or work that you need to do to sell the property. We can do it in less than 10 days. You get cash in hand. And if you're looking to use a title company, that's fine too. You can expect 20 to 30 day close for a title company. So if you want more information on how that works, what kind of process we use, you can call or text us anytime, 313-307-6737, and we'll see how we can maybe help you out with your Arizona land burden. If you made it this far, please give this video a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Tell me where you own land in Arizona. How did you come to own that land? I'd be curious to know what your situation is. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We do lots of videos like this and you don't want to miss out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.